Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tambra Jackson, and I'm the interim dean for the School of Education here at IUPUI. I want to welcome you all to the Employment Planning Institute for Careers in Education, also known as EPIC Ed. I'm pleased that you could join us today, and this will give you all an opportunity to get information about tools that are going to help you in your successful transition from student to professional. And this is one of the things that, we especially like to do as we help you all transition. You've been excellent and wonderful students and novice teachers in training. And now it's time for you to go out into the big wide world like a mama bear, you know? So I'm going to go ahead and transition the floor to Miss Sharice Booker, and she's going to take it from here. But I just wanted to say welcome, and we're very proud of you and happy that you've made it to this point in your trajectory. You're on mute.
The world we live in. Welcome, everyone. My name is Sharice Booker. I'm the Director of Graduate Programs here at the School of Education at IUPUI. Welcome again to the Fall 2020 EPIC Ed. So today you will hear a couple of presentations, and you will also hear some information from experts in the field who are also alumni of the School of Education. First up, you will hear from David Hurd. He is a School of Education career consultant. He is also the Diversity and Equal Opportunity Specialist at the Office of Equal Opportunity here at IUPUI. Later, you will hear from some alumni who will share some key information, and then you will also hear some information about licensing. There will be a lot of information shared today, so we are glad that you are joining us, so please listen closely. Today, we are recording the session, so that way, if you or others need to refer to this information later, it will be available to you. We will also have the EPIC and materials available for you online. There will be a link in the chat, and that is where you can access all of this information. So as I mentioned, we are recording, so we do ask that you keep yourself on mute. That way, we can hear from our presenters and our experts in the field. If you have questions, please utilize the chat feature, and we will answer your questions as soon as possible. So before we begin with our first presenter, I have a save the date for you. Commencement. So commencement for May 2021 will be held on Saturday, May 15th. We are hopeful that you and your guests will be able to attend in person. However, we will follow the guidance of the health department and university administration. For the most up-to-date information, please go to commencement.iupui.edu. So you will see the agenda for today's EPIC Ed here on your screen. And right now, we will begin with Mr. David Hurd. He will share information about resume writing. David.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see your faces again and see some of your names and some of my former students. Good to see everyone. Last semester when we met, I did a resume presentation with you all at EPIC Ed, and we covered quite a few topics. I'm going to kind of jump through those just to refresh you today, but I also want to make sure that we are prepared for what happens next. So let me pull up my shared screen. Some of this is going to look exactly like it did last year, but what I'm really trying to do is just to give a refresher. So this is a much shorter version than the hour we had last semester. And there we go. So initially we talked about passion. We jumped in and talked about how passion connects you with your career path and connects you to your path as far as going into teaching. Again, just running through these pretty quickly, just to give some refresher. We also talked about that definition of a teacher and all of the many aspects of you being a teacher. It's not just you being at the board, but all of the many things you do in the profession of being a teacher to engage and enhance our students. And it comes with this list. And it was just to give you that idea of taking yourself out of the flat I'm a teacher, here's a resume that I've been using for years, but expanding it into the many different aspects of what we do when we're helping and engaging and modeling for our students. We talked a little bit about that application process and what it could look like as far as how many people could see a position and how that funnel kind of fits into you being that perfect person, that perfect applicant for that role. We also talked about the importance of a resume, which was really key. I really expanded a great deal on resume building in our session, and also had several different workshops that I presented last semester for you all to have those conversations. We're going to go into that a little bit more today and expand, but we still want to make sure that we have resume opportunities for you all to kind of build that this semester as well. We talked about knowing your audience and being able to make sure that you provide them with that relevance of what they need to hear from you, not what you want to say and what you want to share, but what more along the lines of what they're interested in and how they intermingle and how that looks on your resume. So using the appropriate language to be able to convey you are the best candidate and why. Being able to make sure that person who's reading your resume, from the hiring manager to your principal, can all be able to picture you as the teacher. You're using the language that really truly shows and illustrates yourself in a manner in which from the words that you're using, someone can truly envision you as being a teacher in their building. And also your resume being written with perfection, meaning you've thought about it, you've been able to write it out, you've made several edits, you've polished it, and then you cycle back around to thinking from the very beginning. This is a lot like critical thinking when we teach our students, but we're applying that to the same process of resume building and career searching, simply because that perfect document is what's going to get people to give you that call versus I've been using this resume for years and it's got me my other positions. I've had students that say, well, my mom is in human resources, but it's in a completely different field. Our particular method gives you the best, most up-to-date information for teachers becoming teachers. So that's how it differs through our workshop processes. That might very well be different than anyone else or any other thing else you've been in resume writing workshops. We dove into a little bit about those transferable skills, being able to take the language of you being in the classroom and then also outside the classroom and other opportunities that you've had, and really break it down into what you did, how did you do it, and most importantly, how well did you do it? That's that bullet point. If you don't remember too much from me in my 15 minutes, and I'm going to share with you all, how well did you do it? Being able to really provide the reader with avenues that really express how well you taught, how well that lesson went. And even when it didn't go well, being able to talk about ways in which what you learned from that and ways that you improved your teaching based on mistakes that you've made. We're all teachers. We all have been there. We all have been places where we've made mistakes and had to make corrections. And sometimes it's making those corrections while the lesson is going on. Be able to talk to that, because whether you're a brand new teacher or you're a master teacher, every group is different. And you have those moments where it's like, okay, I need to kind of switch this up so it makes the best sense for these students that are in front of me. That speaks to the area and how well that you did it. Being able to share statistics, areas in which your students have improved, grade levels with your abilities in student teaching, all of those areas help sell yourself and help market you to those principals. So that's the bullet I really want you all to focus on as we talk about improving these resumes, is really expanding on how well did your students do based on your teaching. We also jumped into some bullet points and what they could look like. We talked about how sometimes they could be very, very simplistic, but being able to manage those into some really good, powerful, bullet points. This being that one we've all probably tutored someone or worked with someone on a one-on-one or a small group basis, and being able to really expand that and using that language that principals and hiring managers really want to see. And we do that in the workshops as well. We talked about action verbs and their importance. We used this simplistic list where we really played around with the language and thinking, okay, some of these words are really simplistic, but they can still be utilized. Thinking about driving test scores up, or being able to juggle multiple opportunities and still give strong instructions. Being able to dig deep into standards to be able to improve the knowledge and understanding. Being able to open students' mind, and what I love about this one is laugh and having fun. Verbs that we probably won't always think of, things that, I'm by the books, I'm being strict, I'm making sure my students learn. But when you're laughing and showing fun, one, you're showing yourself. So you're able to really kind of show those pieces of you. And students learn better when they're able to laugh and love and learn and have fun all together. If those things happen in your classroom, those are things that we need to be able to express in your resume. That again, and I always push, making you set you aside and really putting you above the other candidates. So using the use of the action verbs can really help make those connections for your readers. And then the process of explaining why you are better, why you are better than every other candidate, especially my elementary teachers, especially those of you who are in secondary and you're in an area where there's a small batch of teachers needed, like art teachers or PE teachers, in those areas where you really have to be a really strong candidate because sometimes there's only one in the building. With elementary teachers, if you're talking about 1 3rd grade position, there are hundreds of people who want that same role. You have to be able to express yourself in ways in which they show you being better than all of those other candidates. So in our workshops, we did them a little bit differently this year. Of course, they're going to be virtual, which can probably be really good for everyone being able to connect with these. Normally they were in the past in our SOE building. Now we're going to be able to bring them to you in a virtual format. And the times I've moved up a little bit is before, if you joined me last semester, they were later in the evenings. I've moved them up a little bit simply because now we're virtual and hopefully I can catch you right at the end of your day. Wherever you fit in, you don't, if you say you don't get out of classes or you have afternoon activities that you have to do and you can't be here till 5, still join us. If you could be here at 4, that's great. I'm also serving up 5 of these to be able to kind of catch as many of you all as possible. We're going to do one on resume writing, which will be next Tuesday, 4 to 5:30. Resume review, so I'm going to give you all of the information you need to recreate and make your edits. And then that the following Wednesday, the very next day, being able to take those edits and make sure that they fit and they work, being able to make any final edits. I want you to leave with a strong product. My goal, and whenever I'm working with students, is that when you leave from working with me, I want you to have an A1, absolutely the best document that you can present. So we want to do that across 2 days. The following Tuesday, November the 17th, starting at 4, we'll do interviewing. That following day, Wednesday the 18th, we'll do job searching. And then that next Tuesday, which for those of you taking 13-week classes, this will be after classes have finished, but you may or may not still be in your buildings. But I wanted the opportunity to do kind of a catch-all, meaning you bring any questions you have or any places you're stuck or any worries you might have or concerns, and just to a session of talking about how can we help. Meaning whatever you want to bring to the table, we could discuss during this session. This one's going to be a little bit longer. So for 2 hours on Tuesday the 24th, we'll talk from 4 to 6 p.m. The goal in all of these, the objective, you're thinking about objective statements, thinking about for your synthesis. I want you to be able to set yourself apart from other applicants. I also want you to make yourself more marketable. And I want you to be able to use words that illustrate you are the best teacher for this role. Things that changed from the last time we talked that we really need to be able to add to your resumes is if you're student teaching now, you're probably student teaching virtually, completely, or you're doing a hybrid type class where you're in the classroom and still supporting students who are working from home. Either way, those are aspects that are different than any other resume that you may, that has been a teacher resume prior to now, because these are things that are current, which makes you the perfect candidates for these positions, because there are a lot of teachers who are struggling in these areas, a lot of teachers who are retiring or going to other areas just because this is not the perfect format for them to teach, which opens up opportunities for you all. But at the same time, those opportunities are going to be competitive because now if you're graduating in December, you have a smaller window of opportunity in January. There are teachers who are going to retire over Christmas break and just not come back, which means those opportunities are available for you, but there are not as many as if you were graduating in August. So that's another place where we have to really have strong documentations to speak to the areas that are most needed and necessary, what our employers, our principals are looking for. So I will be here throughout the full time today. I saw Sharice pop back in, so I'm pretty sure I'm at my time. So I'll be here to answer a couple questions, but I hope to see you all in the next couple days, over the next couple weeks for our workshops. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, David. We appreciate that information. Again, students, if you have questions, please direct them to the chat. We will get to your questions as soon as we can. And David can be reached via email at dhurd@iupui.edu. That will also be available in our Epic Ed materials. And so now we will switch gears and hear from Maureen Jane. She is our School of Education licensing consultant, and she will share information about licensing updates. Maureen?
Thank you, Sharice. I am the licensing advisor for the IUPUI School of Education, and I'm here to help you with your licensing questions and what you will need to get an Indiana teacher's license. And I'm going to try to share my screen here to see if I can. Um, I did have something for you. There it is. This is just it's just a sample. I have a handout which will be on the Epic Ed site. It's about 6 pages long, but these are just the highlights from it, and that's what I'm going to go over today. So first of all, in order to graduate, you have to submit your intent to graduate. And maybe you've already done that, but we decided to put that in here because if you don't graduate, that degree is not going to show up on your transcript and we can't license you. So if you haven't done that, the link is here. It's also in the handout. Also, something that you might want to check on, the diplomas are going to be mailed to your home address that is listed in your IUPUI SIS account. And we know often students might move or change that address after they graduate. So you want to look in there and update that for changes so that that can be mailed to the right address. Okay, so as far as getting your license and what you have to do, you have to take and pass the right tests. And for whether you're elementary or secondary, or you're one of the all grade students, phys ed or visual arts, I have all the test numbers listed in my handout. You may know those already, but so you'll look and you'll see what they are. There's also a link for the site that you need to go to sign up. Your test scores are sent electronically both to IUPUI and to the DOE, and of course to you. We don't get paper copies of them. We don't keep paper copies of them. So it's important that you keep an electronic or paper file of these tests, because sometimes in years to come, another employer down the road might want to see that. Also, you should be keeping in there your certifications, your CPR and your suicide prevention training, because we can't duplicate those later. That's up to you. We don't save those. So you want to take and pass the right tests. There is a note in here that the state is switching to another test series next September 2021. So they're going to go from the core series that they use now, that you will see on these links if you go into the state site, back to the Praxis series, which they used to use before. So you're either going to do one or the other. You're not going to be able to mix and match, take some of one and some of the other. You got to do one series or another series. So you might want to look in there on the test site, on these sites, on the DOE site. You will see that information. So for as far as your certifications, the first thing you want to know is that you need the state approved ones, which are listed on the sites in my handout. The CPR has to have a hands-on component. It can be done online, as you'll see on that site, but you do have to have a portion for the hands-on, the AED. So you might want to look into that and get that done if you haven't already, since you're student teaching. And then for your suicide prevention training, as you'll see in the handout, IUPUI does have a module for this that was created by one of our faculty members, and you're welcome to use that. That is free. And in the handout, it shows you how to get to it and how to, what to save for, to submit with your application, because all these things, your test scores, your certifications, are going to be included in your application to the state. So, and if you don't want to do the IUPUI module of the suicide prevention training, there's other choices on the state side, but it does have to be a state approved certification. So you can start looking into that if you want. And often I just tell students, if you want to just scan it, sometimes take a picture with your phone. You can just email it to me. My email is mjane, Jayne, at iupui.edu. It's on the handout as well, because I keep track of all of these. As these things come in for each student, I keep track so that when it comes time to license you, I'm ready just to check those boxes because I've already checked everything off that you have. So take a look at all those links that are in the handout and see what you can get done now. You don't want to be waiting until the last minute because everyone around the state who's going to be getting education licenses, they're all doing this too. So you want to get in there and get your stuff done. We do encourage that you get licensed as soon as possible after graduation or after program completion. Because if the state were to institute any other requirements, and we know they're going to change their testing system, but if they did anything else, years ago, they didn't have the pedagogy test. And that years ago, they didn't have the suicide prevention training. But if they add anything, any requirement, and you don't already have your initial license under your belt, then you would have to comply with the new requirement. So we do encourage you to get your license as soon as possible after program completion. And then the last part of my handout shows how to apply for the license on the state's licensing site. They call it ELVIS, Licensing Verification and Information System. So you can go ahead and start that if you wanted to, and then add things later. You just do not want to make payment until you have everything done, tests and certifications, and your program is finished, because the date that you make payment is the date that will show on your license, and that will trigger the renewal in 2 years. So, but you're free to create an account and go in there and start putting things in. Just don't pay for that license yet. That'll be the date on your license. And also at the end of my handout, you'll see that we can also help you if you need letters for employers, for prospective employers. Sometimes you may not have all your testing done, or you haven't finished your program yet, but I can still do a letter for you and email it to you that to include in applications to employers. It'll either say this student is completing or this student has completed their program. So if you want that, send that to me at my email address along with your student ID number, please, so I can look you up and I can email that letter to you. I do a lot of that. A lot of students use those and include it in their applications for jobs. So, and the last part of the app of my talk to you is about applying to other states. Whether or not you're going to do that, some students do leave the state and go work elsewhere. Now, you can't just assume that you can take your Indiana license and work anywhere, but most states have a reciprocity agreement with Indiana, but they also have their own standards and requirements. So if you are thinking about going to another state, I suggest that you look on that state's education website and see what's required. Sometimes there is a form that needs to be filled out, a program certification form, and I do those. And if you were to email that to me, I will be happy to do it for you and get it either returned to you or returned to the institution. So, and later, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take your questions. But this whole handout will be on the Epic Ed site for you to read. And if you have any questions about any of it, email me at any time. I'm always happy to answer your questions and help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen.
You're welcome.
Again, if you have questions, you can put those in the chat. We are reviewing the chat. We're trying to answer everyone's questions as soon as possible. Again, refer to the Epic Ed link that was put in the chat a few minutes ago if you want to look there. All of this information will be shared at that time. We are getting ready to switch gears and hear from our panelists in a few minutes. So while you're thinking about questions that you may have, we'll give you maybe a minute or so if you want to put some things in the chat right now for either David Hurd or Maureen Jane. And we will have our panelists come on board and share some key information with you.
I see some questions there that I wasn't looking at the chat. I was looking at my slide, but I can go ahead and answer
I'm
those.
going to go ahead and start at the top for David. There's one question I see for David.
Good idea.
Will the link be shared, the Zoom link for these meetings that you introduced or the workshops? Will there be a Zoom link available?
Yes, we will send out both the marketing piece that I shared at the end of the presentation as well as the Zoom link.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, and then the next question is, can CPR certification courses be taken outside of Indiana and still meet requirements for Indiana teachers?
The CPR is usually done by, there's very well-established organizations like Red Cross, or I could name off some others. Look at the link on the DOE site to see if the organization that you are going to be using is on there. And, you know, I don't choose those organizations, the state does. So check on there. If you have a further question about it, you could email me and I will ask my contact at the state. If you have questions about things that are going to go through the state, if you email me, I can email my contact and get answers real quickly. They're so busy over there now. It's hard just using their general email and their general number to get through, but they answer licensing advisors pretty quickly. So I'm always happy just to forward that question on. I usually get an answer in just minutes.
Okay, and then the next question is related to social studies licensure.
Yep.
Do you know if the test will include all subjects or will it have the student take separate tests?
There is a separate test for all the separate areas, for historical perspectives, for government, for all the areas in the core series, and there probably will be in the praxis series as well. Yeah, there is one test for each area.
And then this question is about suicide. There's two questions about suicide prevention. How do they need to renew it? And is it required?
I don't know about renewal. I have not heard of anyone needing to renew it, and I don't believe that is on their site. I would definitely save your certification papers so that in the future, if a school district, and I have known students, they've asked us, do you have my SPT, my suicide prevention certificate, because my school district wants it, and we don't save them. Just keep it, you know, and then you've got proof that you took it. And as far as I know, they haven't had to be renewed. And was it about taking it or something? You do have to have.
Is it required for licensure?
Don't know. For life insurance?
Licensure.
Licensure. Okay. Sorry. It is required. Yep. Suicide prevention training is required for licensure.
And then one other question about a licensure. Does IUPUI license the student, or does the state, or just the student get licensed?
We recommend the license. When I go through your license application, they don't know. They're not looking at your degree. They're not looking at what you took. We're the ones that know that you've finished your program. And so we check all the boxes saying you're done, and we've seen your CPR, we've seen your SBT, we've seen your test scores, and then we recommend, and it goes to the state and just whizzes by them, and you'll get an email. They do green now, that you won't get a hard copy in the mail of your license. You will get an email from them saying that you can go back into your Elvis account and print it off. I didn't mention before, but the state currently does not require a criminal history check with your license. They do that now at the school district level. They used to require one years ago, but now it's at the school district level, and it's more like the large criminal history check that the FBI or someone does. But if there's a place on the in the application, if you have anything to disclose about your criminal history, you must disclose it and you must attach the documents. And then when I go ahead and click to recommend it, that you have finished your program and everything, but then it will go into the legal side of DOE and they will handle it there. And you'll hear from them.
Okay, I'm going to try to combine these questions because we'll move forward from here. Should all documents be submitted or uploaded to Elvis and then the student pay, or vice versa, I assume? And then the second question says, once that is all done, do we need to tell somebody that it's done, basically?
Okay, and you will upload your documents to Elvis. And also you can send them to me as well. If you're not ready to put them in, that's what students often do. And then I keep a database of each student and where they are in their progress toward their license. So either place, me or the state. And then you do not make that payment, however, until you see your degree on your transcript. And there's a sample in the handout about what that looks like. And for students in this fall semester, it probably will be in the first week or two of January, because they have to check everything, and it's a big university-wide process. But you do not make your payment for that license until you see your degree, because if for some reason, and that's why you need to check with your advisor and make sure everything's done. If you have any questions that you may or may not be done, please check with one of our advisors. Once you see the degree posted, then you can make the payment. That is the date that will be listed on your license for renewal, to trigger renewal. But you can go ahead and put things in there and go back in all the time, but just do not pay for them yet. And then you don't have to worry about telling anybody that it's done. I look at it every day. We are in that site. I'm in there every day looking to see who's applied, and I get them recommended as soon as possible, as fast as possible.
Thank you, Maureen. Thank you, David. And before I hand it to Sharif, I wanted to just share, I'm Laverne, the events coordinator, by the way, sorry. I just wanted to address one question, and it was, is licensing required for graduation?
I see that.
Yeah, it is not required. Go ahead, Maureen.
No, licensing is not required for graduation. Graduation is required for licensing. You do have to have program completion. And if you're a certification student and not getting a degree, we still check to make sure all of the classes are done. If you're getting a degree, we have to see that before we will recommend the license. And the next question I see is about getting a job for the spring. That's why I can do these letters for you, because you're not going to have license in your hand in mid-January. You might have it the third week of January or so. But I can do a letter for you, and it'll say this person has finished. And you know that the school districts around here have seen these letters for many years, and they understand your license is on the way. So you won't necessarily have your license in your hands at that point, because we do have to see the program completion and make sure that all the testing and certifications are done. But as you're doing, if you need a letter for a job application, please let me know and we'll get one to you.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'll hand it back over to Sharice.
Yes, thank you. Good questions, and thank you for the information, Maureen, David, Laverne. Thank you for managing the chat for us. So now we will switch gears. We want to welcome now our alumni from the School of Ed and experts from the field. So we have with us today, April Tramiel and Brandon Warren. Welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to join our December graduates, as well as our December program completers. We do have a few questions for you both, but before we get to the questions, if you could just again, introduce yourself, tell us what school or district corporation you're with, and a little bit about your position. We can start with April.
Okay, well, I need to first unmute myself. Hello, welcome, congratulations. I was a December grad too, so I know all too well how ready you are to be done. So just congratulations. But my name is April Tramiel. I graduated from IUPUI in 2008. I am currently working for the District of Indianapolis Public Schools. I am the Senior Manager of Talent Development, and I support all the new teachers in the district as they come in through the new teacher induction program.
Thank you, April. Brandon?
Hello, graduates. Again, first of all, congratulations. I know that this is an exciting time because, boy, I remember back in the day, we had that countdown that we used to look at. I couldn't wait till it got down to the single digits, started dancing. I digress. My name is Brandon Warren. I am a proud alumni of the School of Education, class of 2009. It goes so fast. I am currently an assistant principal in IPS at Brookside School 54. And I'm honored to be here today.
Thank you, Brandon. So we'll move to our first question. So our question is, do you have any suggestions for equitable strategies for the classroom? And Brandon, if you would like to start first.
I think the first thing when we think about equitable, it doesn't necessarily mean the idea of pity. There's a difference between sympathy and empathy. And just really truly knowing your learners and knowing where you teach. I think it is very important for people when I'm looking at a candidate that is interviewing for my school is, what do you know about my community? What resources do you know that are available? Because again, low key, I'm trying to see what you might know that I haven't tapped into before. But also, what are you willing to do in order to ensure that you see that we lack here? What are you willing to do to go above and beyond to ensure that these students are just as successful as those that are in Zionsville or the other places?
Thank you, April.
Yes, I thought long and hard about this question. And I think what came to me that stood out the most for me was one, is first making sure that you really truly build an authentic relationship with your students. And I think and that will happen all throughout the year. And you have to be very intentional about the relationship that you're building. But I think too, what I would also like to encourage you is that as you begin to put different systems and procedures in place in your classroom, always examine those for any bias. And an example of that is, say, for example, you use Class Dojo, right? And you have students that maybe they can earn 5 points. If they come in the morning, they're on time, they turn in their work, they've already marked their breakfast or whatever it may be. Well, let's say that you have a student who was chronically tardy. So when the moment these students walk in, they are already significantly behind their peers because you have created a system that they can't even compete in because they're always tardy. So maybe the way you can rephrase it is that whenever you come into the classroom, within this time frame, if you've done X, Y, Z. So then that allows every student to be able to be successful. So if I had a doctor's appointment, if I was just running late or whatever, I am still able to be successful today and get the same things that my peers that were made available to them. So it's things like that that sometimes we don't think about, right? Because we're like, oh, well, this is the same thing for everyone. But that's what we got to be careful about when we think about equity, because again, we always think fair, but equity is really giving students what they need to be successful. And there was this quote that I heard Superintendent Johnson say. She said, often students in urban education, when we think about equity, she said, it's oftentimes we look at these students and we feel like they're broken. He said, these students are not broken, they're resilient. Like out of everything that they've been through, they still manage to show up every day. That is resilience. That's not broken. So I say that too, to give you the mindset that you don't have to come in and fix them. These students are already coming to us the best that they know how to be. Our job is to teach them and also to learn from them as well. And I think if we build that relationship, always examine what we're doing and looking for bias in it, even if you have to have someone else look in it, because trust me, kids will tell you, you'll think you're doing something fair and they'll remind you that it's not. So, you know, And you just have to question it. And it doesn't mean that you were wrong, okay? It's just a learning experience, and it's okay because you're gonna make mistakes. The important thing is just to learn from them.
Thank you both. Very wise words of wisdom from you both. We'll move to our next question now. So our next question is, what steps have your schools taken to support academic fairness and inclusion? April, if you want to start again with us, can you share some thoughts about that?
Okay, well, my position is district level. So one of the things that IPS first had to do, and I'm sure Mr. Warren will speak to this as well, considering we're both serving in Indianapolis Public Schools. We were at a disadvantage when all of this happened, right? And so when COVID happened, so one of the things we had to do was basically get devices and things into students' hands. Like everyone didn't have that. And so I think when you think about strategies that they are doing, one is trying to make everybody have access to the same thing, because we don't have that. IPS, one of the great things about IPS is that we allow our leaders to have a lot of autonomy. But the problem then with that is because I could be at this school and I could be receiving these services and receiving these things, but I could be 3 blocks away and maybe that leader isn't providing these same resources and these same things. And so I think IPS now is very in tune to that. And so if you think about some of the things that they've already accomplished under leadership, Superintendent Johnson's leadership, we now have a district-wide racial equity initiative that everybody goes through. Everyone in IPS needs to do this training. And then I won't keep talking. I'll let Mr. Warren chime in on some of the other things.
Thank you, April. Brandon?
So currently right now, and again, as Ms. Trammell said, we made sure that all students were given a device. But not only that, we took it a step further. A device is only as good as you having access to the internet. So also each student was offered the opportunity to come up to receive a MiFi device. And in our larger families, a lot of them were given multiple ones, because what we realized is that for some of them, yeah, I got 6 kids and you giving me 1 device, because when we first started, we were only allotted 1 device per family, which unbeknownst to us. But in addition, I have to say that during this pandemic, people have really shown that we really do come together and what our true value is for education. We are very fortunate at my building to be partnered with Northview Church. They bought every single student a backpack this year. So each student, when they came and picked up their new device, they also had all their supplies for the entire year. In addition, all of our teachers were allotted and given a $50 gift card so they could also purchase other needed materials. In addition, I operate on the philosophy, when a kid comes to school, guess what? If you have sweatpants on, come on in. Because at this point in time, you came. You need a mask, we got some at the door. Because I think what we have realized during this time is that, particularly in order to truly ensure the education of all children, we have to stop sweating some of the little things.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Brandon and April. So our last question, and Brandon, we'll start with you. The question is, has the hiring process or practices changed due to COVID-19? And if so, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, it has changed. Unfortunately, I'm very much so, I like to really have people come in to meet with them, but unfortunately due to COVID, again, with the 6 feet distancing and stuff, and due to the rise of numbers, again, everything's virtual. So again, it's all focused on presentation. And, a lot of times when I am interviewing a candidate, you can tell a lot about how a person may be sitting, how they may be looking, or even how their gestures may be. I mean, it's the little minute things that you may even see that people do. I do see that people are tending to interview a little bit better, considering that they're in their own turf. So I honestly would say it's to an advantage that you don't have to come in person so much so now due to COVID. Honestly, also everything is pretty much presented electronically. So my first introduction to a lot of people may be, okay, make a 3-minute commercial of yourself telling me a little bit about who you are and what you can offer to my school. A lot of virtual platforms have been employed where a screen pops up, somebody's talking to you saying you have 3 minutes to answer this question. And again, after the 3 minutes of your processing, they give you a 1 minute to process and you have 3 minutes to record yourself. And then on certain questions, you may be allowed to go back and retake, but then you may not.
Yeah, I would.
Brandon. April.
Yes, I would definitely agree with everything that Mr. Warren said. I mean, I think the one thing I would add to that as well is piggybacking on electronically, how everything is electronically. I think when this pandemic first happened, I think one of the things that IPS quickly realized is that we are we knew this, but we are a massive district, a massive system. And so a lot of times when you start, you kind of work with a hiring coordinator, but then you have all this different paperwork, you have this different things. So you might be in contact mainly with like one person, but different departments are needing different things. And so I think one of the things that has been good about this is IPS has now realized that instead of making teachers come in and wait to do it, to get their badge, to do all of these things, now everything is electronically. So now I can sign up and set a time. I don't have to worry about office hours being from 8 to 2, and then I show up at 11 and realize 50 other people decided to show up at 11 and now I'm sitting. Now I can get online, I can schedule an appointment and say, I want the 11:30 slot. I show up at 11:30 and it's for me. And then I can get my badge, turn in any paperwork if I need to turn it in during that time, and I am done, And so I think that's been one of the great and positive things that have come out of this is now IPS is moving to, like I said, electronic system, because it was a lot of paper.
Thank you. We will open the floor up now to see if any of our students have a question for our guest. And if you do, you can unmute yourself and just jump in and ask a question. While you're thinking, there's a question that I will pose to our guests. Can you share some tips for job search and interview during this time while our students are preparing to graduate? Just things you want to share with them as they're going to take that next step soon?
I would say teaching is of the heart. And so, but teaching is also hard work, okay? So I would say that when you are looking for a place to teach, none, I would say, and it's not to instill any fear, it's not gonna be easy. And so what you wanna do is find some place that at least connects to your heart, because your heart is what's ultimately going to keep you in it. Because there will be moments where you will question why you are still doing it. And I'm sure you probably even did that in student teaching. So you really, at that point, when the work gets hard, that's when the heart has to start working. So find you some place that you feel connected to or a sense of belonging. And you also want to create that type of environment for your students, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to keep them coming back every day and respecting you, because it will get hard and challenging for them. But when their heart is in it, the heart will start working when we want to shut down and quit.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Brenda, do you have anything to add to what April shared?
I think the biggest thing is when you're interviewing for any position or looking into it, really know the community in which you are going to be serving in. I think a lot of people have a lot of stereotypes when they think about IPS, and there's no one IPS school that is the same. Brookside is not like Stephen Foster, nor is it like a CFI school. It is very different. It's a mecca of variety everywhere you go. And I think it's important to really feel like you fit, but also you feel like I could actually add to the culture. Because I can tell you, when I'm hiring somebody, I always look to see who can I hire that's going to be able to add to what we're already doing. How can I get more for my money? Because again, as Ms. Trammell said, we're in charge of our own budget. So again, I can get this person, I can hire them. They are actually in love with the community and they're willing to coach a team. Now, this is pre-COVID, of course, but again, willing to do those extra things and serve in the community.
If you don't mind, I'd like to add on to that also. Don't wait until January to work in January. This is the time to be applying right now. Your perfect position might be posted and might be gone by the end of the week. And that's not to scare you, but it's just the truth of the matter. Because as these two principals will explain to you, they want to fill that position before they leave for Christmas. So they're trying to get it done as soon as they know that the opportunity and availability will be there. They're trying to fill it, which means for you all, you really have to be proactive in finding your opportunity, applying, and going through the entire process.
And you know what, to speak to that point, I didn't graduate until May. I was interviewing in January. I was still in Block 4. Signed my paperwork with the letter that Maureen said that basically stated that I was completing my program and had a position before I graduated. So it does happen because, again, I can tell you the principal that I'm currently under, he is very proactive. In January, we're already asking people, are you coming back? So we go ahead and start staging and putting stuff in place. I'm going to be very honest, those are the principals you want to work for, because if they're already thinking about who's going to be where, they're going to make sure you have all your resources, all your training, and you feel comfortable before kids get here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. There is a question in the chat, and it says, do you all have any tips on how to get students to turn work in at a higher rate or at higher rates?
I would like to speak to that. I really would like to hear more about that because I really don't want to make any assumptions. So Connor, if you would you, when you say turn in work, I'm assuming you're meaning homework, but I'm not sure. You're muted.
Sorry. So it's not necessarily homework. It's more just like in-class work that we do. I don't really give out a whole lot of homework. It's just simply, I'll have a do now or, a discussion post that I need them to respond to or, a document-based question that we'll do in class. And I would say right now I'm probably I'm thinking around like 40% participation on that. And talking with some of the other kids in my cohort, it seems like that's a pretty common hurdle we've run into, just getting students to turn things in. And part of it, there's a degree of understanding as well with the fact that a lot of kids are at home. So I adjust for certain percentages where I'm like, okay, I understand that a certain percentage of these kids either can't get on, their computers are messed up, they've got bad internet, something to that effect. But it seems I've also talked to other veteran teachers who taught in typical school years, and it doesn't seem to be too dissimilar from their experience as well.
Well, I'll give you a couple of tips. One, if your expectation is for them to turn in the work, don't change that. They need to turn in the work. So even if they don't turn it in right when you say, I'm going to still keep challenging them to turn in the work. So at least that way, they will always know that even if they don't turn it in, I never accepted the fact that he didn't turn it in. Because once you accept the fact that they didn't turn it in, then they're going to keep not turning it in. So I'm going to keep requiring you to still keep turning in this work to me, even if I'm reminding your parents, if I'm constantly messaging you, or each week I'm giving you like a sheet of things that are still not turned in, because that is my expectation. And then also I would look at the work. Is there only one way to do it? Because maybe students don't want to do it the way that we're asking for it to be done. Because again, when we think about equity, is there a better way that I could answer? Like, is there an app? Like, could I work with a group and we talk about it and then we fill out a slip? Like, is there another way that you can still get an understanding of what they understand without maybe doing whatever the task is? Because what they could be doing is not resisting the work, but they're resisting the manner in which the work needs to be done. Like, if I'm somebody that I don't like to write, it's not that I don't like this assignment. It's not even that I don't know the answers. I just don't want to write because that's not my thing. Now, if I type it or Facebook it, I'll do that, but I don't want to write it this way. So, also looking into that too, but keep your expectation always there that I want this work. Like, you owe this to me.
Thank you, April. Brandon, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, my philosophy as a teacher and also even as an administrator, failure is not an option. So again, if we're not doing it now, we're gonna do it later. So again, even as an administrator right now, I tell my teachers, I tell them all the time, I said, look, I'm still a teacher at heart. So when I come in your room and I see a student struggling, you're not gonna do this, we about to do it right now. Because unfortunately, behavior is communication. And if students are not turning in work, what I have to ask myself is why they are not doing it. Because I feel like every parent sends us their best child. And I believe every child wants to do their personal best. It could be, as Ms. Trammell said, everybody, that's my best friend though. But again, we're being more, again. But so the thing is, we're trying to make sure that, again, with them, we're trying to prepare them for society. And unfortunately, if you don't work, you don't get a paycheck. And this is your way of learning that. And for a lot of kids, what I have to think about with an assignment, I may have 10 questions and a kid's just like, 10 is too many. So guess what? Fair is not always equal. Why do you have to show me that you can do it with 10 problems when you can show me with 2? And that's where differentiation comes into play. And then I guarantee once you start doing that and realizing, as April said, that you can change the medium through what you may decide to assess, you probably will see an increase in your completion rates.
Thank you both. If there is one last question that anyone has before we allow our guests to return back to all the hard and great work that they're doing.
It's Friday. Everybody's happy.
Any last question?
I have great wait time. I've learned that over the years. So.
Okay. Well, April and Brandon, thank you both. We do not want to hold you any longer, but we have appreciated your knowledge, your wisdom, and sharing this very valuable information with our soon-to-be graduates and program completers. And we will let you both get back to the rest of your afternoon and start of your weekend. Thank you again for joining us. We greatly appreciate it.
Please tell Dr. Lance we're still doing good.
Good.
We will let her know.
And I put my email in the chat. So if you ever want to email me or reach out, anything that I can help you to do, it doesn't even have to be for a job in IPS. IUPUI is my heart. And so anything that I could do to help you, because again, teaching is also my purpose. So feel free to email me. No question is a stupid question.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so students, before we end our fall Epic Ed, there is one final thing that we would like for you to do. On your screen, you will see a QR code. There will also be a link available. We would like you to complete our Epic Ed survey. That way you could give us some feedback and insight on today's presentation. So if you could just take a few minutes right now and complete that, we would be very grateful for that. Thank you.